The time is currently 8:35 p.m. on a Sunday night. Somewhere in the northeast of America, two men come together via connection. An electric connection, some would say. It's
Some
called
would say
the internet.
A raw electric connection.
Raw electric connection, because this is the Hungover Podcast, episode 86. I'm one of your hosts, Julien.
And I'm the person that's here, Yvonne.
Very nice introduction there. I must tell the people, though, this is a very topical podcast where we discuss, anything from video games to politics. Of course, today we're going to be discussing politics with the Kavanaugh hearings. I said all of them wrong. It's not like I heard his name a million times this week. We're going to be discussing the Trump's recent nomination for the Supreme Court, who has come up in very recent politics that is very, very disturbing to me. But we'll see what happens when we discuss it. Because there were some hearings, like a job interview for him, perhaps. But, you can get this podcast in audio form on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. You can also get it in video form on our YouTube channel, Hungover Gaming. Just give it a search and maybe subscribe to it if you want. In the video form, we put up some sweet background videos and things to aid our discussion. But you can catch those on Mondays at 9 a.m. But you can really be part of the conversation live at twitch.tv/jujubesgood or twitch.tv/comradeboyar as he auto-hosts me. Yvonne, that's the rigmarole.
That does happen.
It's the rigmarole. The people...
Dude, how are you? Just like, people want to know just how you are. How are you feeling?
I don't think anyone knows who I am, and that's fine with me. I'm doing fine,
people have
though.
spoken to me on an individual basis, and they've been like, hey, how is Julien doing?
Julien doing? I don't know. We see all these videos of him, and, he sort of has this dead look in his eyes. I'm not sure. No, I'm doing fine. I had a little scare last night. I thought I was going to get sick because I was hanging out it was my girlfriend's friend's birthday, and she was sick, and we were hanging out all night. So I was like, oh man, she's coughing a lot. I'm a little worried.
Ooh.
I'm a little worried for myself. But I didn't wake up this morning with a sore throat. I woke up this morning feeling just dandy.
Nice. That's excellent, I would say.
Yeah, but Yvonne, we start our podcast out every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just tell me what you did this week. That's at the end of the episode? I know. Just tell me what you did this week. What did you do this week, and what media have you been consuming? And what did you drink last night?
So this week I have been delving deep into fantasy football. For everyone keeping track, Goon Squad, my perennial fantasy football team, is 0-2-1, if you would believe. I do have a tie on hand. I don't know how your team is doing, Julien. Your team, which you spend more money on, but I invest a lot more time on.
Yeah, I don't have the pure tactical skill as you do, but I hit 130 points this week.
Nice.
So
that's a solid. I'm at 119 currently in a standard league,
I'm gonna
not
win
half
this.
point PPR.
No, I did nothing, and I got 130 points, and the person I'm up against got 102 points. Chances of winning 81%. It's a lot.
Nice.
Yeah,
I have 119 points in standard. No PPR here. Mm-hmm. No fractional points. It's just straight up. If you get 10 yards, you get a point. Or 25 if you're a quarterback. Anyway, it was a little sad because I played the Packers defense against the Bills.
Ooh.
Knowing that the Packers would do well. I watched the entirety of that Bills game. Saw the Bills get fucking trounced. I'm pretty upset.
Sad day. It's a sad day when the Bills lose. So
it is,
most days are sad.
Especially since last week we crushed the Vikings. Anyway,
Yeah, I saw it
So
on the news. Pretty sick
this week
page.
I've been trying to pay attention to some fantasy football stuff. I was paying attention to a lot of Brett Kavanaugh stuff, as we will get into later. And with Laura, we started watching a new show on Netflix. Laura binged the entire thing. I still am in the first. There are only 6 episodes about per season. So it's a pretty fast one. It's called Norseman.
Very good.
Yeah.
Got the Wikipedia in the background.
I think a Norwegian
yes,
comedy
Norwegian.
TV show. Imagine if Vikings and The Office merged into one show.
Oh, so
That's
it's a
literally
comedy.
this show. It is really, really funny. And it's like, it is like Office style humor where it's like small observational comedy and different things.
Is it in English?
It's all fully in English.
Okay.
All of it's acted in English. It's really, really funny. I highly recommend it. I don't know how long it's been on Netflix. It's really, really funny. They film in both Norwegian and English, but the one on Netflix that I saw was completely English. There are 2 seasons up. I highly recommend it. Yeah.
It looks like the first season won a Gollerton Award in 2017 for Best Comedy Show. Highly funny show, apparently. This is cool.
Really, really well worth checking out. I think you would enjoy it. It kind of has that Arrested Development Office type feel.
That's hilarious, but it's in Viking land.
Exactly, it's set in Viking land. If you click on that photo there, that's the still screen, and you see that necklace that the blonde woman is wearing.
Too bad. Yeah.
That you will soon find out. I think in the first or second episode, that is a cock necklace.
Oh, that is some next level shit.
Those are just cocks that she decided to cut off and dry out and wear as a necklace.
Yeah, that is.
And that's just the style of humor that exists in this.
Shape and size that dried out cock would be. That's pretty gross. Apparently, the original language is Norwegian. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, but I won't. It's been translated to English, obviously.
It is recorded simultaneously in both Norwegian and English language versions.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, anyway, highly recommend it. Go out, check it out. I haven't seen any movies recently, though that is on the list of things to do. I think tomorrow we might go check something out. But yeah, how about you, Julien? What have you been up to?
For me, I have had a pretty eventful week, I suppose. Aside from the regular stuff that I do, work and whatnot. This weekend, it was Friday it started, was the Soul Calibur 6, and Captain Crispy just followed me on Twitch. Thank you for following me. Thanks for liking the stream. We do this podcast every single week on Sundays. But I will tell you, the Soul Calibur 6 demo, well, it was a network test, so you could play the game online against people in ranked matches. And they gave us the E3 build, but it was also including some various other characters like Valdo, the weird sex demon character, and I believe her name starts with a Talim, also in the game. We'll have the trailer running in the background here. So I got to play that. I've been waiting forever to play this game, and I've been super excited because it's another fighting game. So I learned a lot about Soul Calibur. I had played Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube when it came out, because I believe everyone played that. I also played Soul Calibur 4 with a bunch of my friends on 360 when that came out. It had Yoda and Darth Vader in it. This game, Soul Caliburs are known for having guest characters. This game has Geralt of Rivia, so the Witcher 3 character, which is pretty cool. But back then, I didn't really know.
Way to placate to everyone, CD Projekt Red.
Exactly. I didn't really know much about fighting games back then, although now I know a lot more, and they're really my favorite genre of video games. But I'll tell you, this game is really cool. It's mostly, every single character has a different weapon, so they all have a very different fighting style. And Crispy Cat and Crispy donating one bit. Thank you. Why does the guy on the left look single, but the guy on the right like he gets any girl he wants? I don't know about that. Definitely don't get
because Julien
any
is
ladies.
way cooler than I am. And I'm also wearing a fleece vest.
What a question. Hey, fleece is so comfortable. I'll tell you.
It's super comfy. I'm very warm, but that's
So,
the whole thing.
This game is really cool in that it gives you a lot of defensive options. So a lot of fighting games, you kind of just have to eat, block high or low. So you can block high and low in this game, but it also gives you what's called guard impact, which is a parry system, essentially. You time your parry and you can push them off you. I mean, it's not specifically this game, but Soul Calibur in general. Guard Impact's been in Soul Calibur for a while. But there's a lot of different, you can, so it becomes a mind game. If you are playing on a higher level, you're going to know when your opponent's going to Guard Impact you. So you're going to try to bait it out because it leaves them vulnerable if they whiff it. So it gets into some crazy mind games. They also introduced what's called Reversal Edge, which is a pretty cool move that sort of counters, does a little bit of damage and then puts your opponent in a rock, paper, scissors type situation where you both push a button and you have to guess what your opponent's going to do, because you can push the correct button and it'll beat your opponent's move, and then you have the advantage and you can do a combo. So this game going to be super cool. I can't wait for it to come out. Comes out
on my birthday
on the 19th. Happy birthday, Vaughn. You should get it. I think you would like it. There's a lot of really
I've
cool
been
characters.
looking for a fighting game to beat Laura in, a new one.
There are a lot of cool characters in this game. I think you guys will like this game. But
I've played a fair amount. I played
Soul
I think
Calibur's
Soul
cool.
Calibur 4.
4? Who is the guest character in the game?
This is an excellent question.
Oh well.
Who is Soul Calibur 4's guest character?
Yoda or Darth Vader, depending
What
on
about
if you...
5?
Who?
Were any of them on the GameCube?
Yeah, the Soul Calibur 2 was on GameCube. That had Link in it, which is pretty
then
cool.
maybe it was Soul Calibur 2.
Yeah, Link was in the GameCube version, Heihachi from Tekken was in the PS2 version, and Spawn was in the Xbox version. Thought that was
So I definitely
cool.
played Soul Calibur 2, but I think I also played Soul Calibur 4.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, Soul Calibur is a 3D fighting game, which is really cool. The movement is fairly simple. You just hold the direction and you start walking in it. There's 8-way directions. Pretty cool.
It's totally a fun game, I thought. I'm notoriously bad at fighting games just because I'm impatient and aggressive in a way that I can't capitalize on.
Okay, Captain Crispy. Keep it down, will ya? We're having a conversation here. All right? We're talking about Soul Calibur. But we'll move on to what else I did. I went to this place called Brooklyn Kura to get more sake. I got sake again 2 weekends in a row. I got blasted. No, I didn't get very drunk, but because it was kind of expensive. But this place is pretty cool. They have a place in downtown Brooklyn. Also, I think Industry City is where it is. And basically, this place makes their own sake on site. I saw some of the vats that they use, the distilling. Well, they don't distill sake. Actually, sake is made similarly to how beer is made, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
You just basically replace the hops for rice. But there's different types of sake. I learned they taught me a lot about sake. I don't know much about sake, but now I know.
It also has koji in it.
Huh? Yeah, koji. And then also yeast as well.
Well, beer has yeast in it too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Wait, that I was comparing the two. Whatever.
Right.
Anyways.
You said rice. Anyway, what I was saying is that koji isn't in beer, but it is
fair enough.
In sake.
Definitely.
Which I think is interesting because I don't know what it is, and apparently it's a fungus.
Yeah, it is has a Latin name as well, obviously. But which they told me, but I forgot because I'm not a biologist. But Aspergillus, that's what it started with, an A, and then I think it had a K or a G, the second one. I don't know. The sake here, I tried 2 of their sakes. And sake is interesting in that it's more like a wine in flavor, I would say, a little bit. You can describe it similarly. It can be dry or sweet, and it's generally eaten with, I guess, obviously Japanese food. But sake is also as alcoholic as wine is. So beer, you generally have around 5% to 6%, can range up to 10% as well. But sake is typically above 10% always. So this place we tried their standard sake, which was all right. I didn't like it that much. It had a very fermented taste. So it tasted, kind of like baijiu, which is Chinese rice wine.
Oh God! Really?
It had a small hint of it. It wasn't like as intense as that one that we had. But the other one that I had, which was called Occidental, which was a pretty cool idea. They said it was an accident. They decided that it came out good, an accident. So they decided to put hops into the mash with the rice as well, and they fermented hops and rice together and made a sake. So it also had sort of like a rosé type color as well, which was pretty cool. And you could taste the hops a little bit, but it tasted a lot more like sake. So it was actually way better than the first one that we tried. So I highly suggest going here. I thought it was really fun. They have an outdoor area. It's not a long
trip for you either. That's cool. It's not a long trip for you.
Yeah. Oh, it's very close to where I live. If you come by down here and visit again, I'll definitely take you there. It was a lot of fun. And they serve the sake in like if you order a larger portion, they serve it in an Erlenmeyer flask, which is kind of funny.
Cool.
So
That's really cool.
I was like, maybe I should work here. I don't know. They clearly embrace science, which I was a fan of. But anyways,
check it out then. One of the guys I work with at the coffee shop, actually, he teaches Gen Chem.
Oh, awesome.
Gen Chem 2.
That's a good side gig, working at the coffee shop. Anyways, Yvonne, that's about it for me.
I forgot to tell you what I was drinking this week.
What were you drinking this week?
Dude, I was drinking Raka.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no. How drunk did you get?
That
drunk. And for people who don't know what Raka is, what is it about?
So Raka is the Turkish liquor. So much like most places in the Middle East or like basic forms of liquor, like there's the Russian path, which is like there's no taste to this whatsoever. It's just straight alcohol and water. A lot of other places are like, okay, we want some flavor to it, and the easiest thing to flavor things with is anise.
Anise, yeah.
So Raka is a grape like alcohol liquor flavored with anise.
Okay.
So it has this strong like licorice taste to it. The traditional way that you drink it is like 1/3 Raka, 2/3 water ish. Probably actually more Raka to water proportion in the traditional Turkish. I can't drink it that way because I'm not that strong in terms of my ability to do that. Surprisingly, I know it's me. But I have these handy dandy like Sam Adams like tasting glasses, so it's really nice to. These are like pretty much proper Raka glasses.
Cool.
Anyway, so it does become this kind of milky white if it's mixed.
That's interesting.
With water, and what we found is that if you mix it with a soda stream, it's even better. Whoa. It really has this like tongue numbing effect that's just like it's super easy to drink, really delicious. I think it's one of the most dangerous bottles of liquor we've ever bought. It's actually a liquor that Laura wants to drink.
Oh God, I don't like licorice. So I mean, the first time I had it with you, I did not like it. So It was not for me.
It's a unique flavor. I think a lot of people don't like it. I enjoy really, really bitter things because I'm a sociopath. So I really enjoy Raka, and it puts me in a good mood just because it reminds me of all the exciting fun times I had in Istanbul.
Of course.
And I had a really good time when I was in Turkey, so it was, I think it's an excellent kind of off the beaten track liquor if you're looking for something to bring to like a party or something. It's very easy to blend. All you need is water to make it drinkable, and then you have like a bottle of Raka and then water, and you're set to go.
That's really funny.
In any case, do you know who else talked a lot about drinking this week?
Yes, Mr. Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court nominee for the upcoming, election period. I believe that's when he gets voted on. I don't know. It's in discussions right now. Hold on.
So Supreme Court nominees are voted upon by the Congress.
The
right?
Congress. I know that. Yeah.
So
I wasn't referring to the general populace voting on him.
Okay,
which
good.
Clearly, I don't know the time that he's voted on. That's what I was referring to.
Part of it is that the vote was supposed to be this week, but Senator Coons, a Democrat, and Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, a Republican, delayed the vote on Brett Kavanaugh for a week after hearing testimony from, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford.
Blase.
I don't know. Dr. Christine Ford is the easiest way for me to do it. So Dr. Ford came forth about allegations in which Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her when they were in high school together.
1982.
It's been a long time, but this is a thing that is mostly unusual for Supreme Court nominees to have to go through. And this has been an exceedingly tumultuous period over whether or not to listen to Dr. Ford, whether she's credible. There's been a lot of debate on both sides as to what this testimony means and going forward what should be done. And the interesting thing that we have from the testimony is that there's going to be a limited scope FBI investigation delaying the vote for at least a week as the FBI investigates.
Right, and I believe on the Republican side, who are generally the people who are supporting Brett Kavanaugh as pretty much their nomination for the Supreme Court.
As he was nominated by Trump.
Yeah, he was nominated by Trump.
In case you live under a rock and don't know, or you're from another country and maybe don't haven't investigated.
Or know about what's going on in American politics. But so the Republicans obviously have been trying to defend him in every way possible, shouting back at the other side, and they've tried their best to not have an FBI investigation of this man and what he did, what he may or may not have done in the summer of 1982 to Dr. Ford. Now, it was. I saw highlights from the hearing, which happened on Thursday, the 27th, I believe, I believe that's when it was. And
it was on Thursday, the 27th.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. I don't know. I mean, Dr. Ford came out and had a very long, or not. Yeah, it was pretty long. I believe her testimony, or I believe that's what you would call it. Her testimony, or what she said.
I would say that is that's a fine way of putting it.
And of course, Brett Kavanaugh was questioned a lot. But keep in mind, this was a hearing and not a trial against Brett Kavanaugh. She has allegations against him, but they're never formulated into pressing charges, for instance, or that type of thing. So there's no real legal precedence against him yet, or possibly yet, and so it's still up in the air. That's why they're doing this FBI investigation. I believe one of the senators said this is not a trial. This is more like a job interview, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's possible that if there was sexual assault, etc., it might be outside of the statute of limitations for pressing charges anyway. Mm-hmm. So this is mostly like, do you want one of the, or like a member of the highest court of the land to have been a person who committed sexual assault during the course of their life?
Definitely not. No. I don't want anyone in our politics to have, and any politician in general, whether it be in America or anywhere else, to have done that. I don't think that should be a thing at all.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So there are multiple levels, I think, to this. No, I was kind of like, it's a good statement to make. I mean, it's not a difficult. I think you don't have to be super brave to make that kind of statement, but it is an important question. Like, how much does a person's actions, when they are not of full cognitive capability, right? Mm-hmm. So we're still going through puberty and different things in the times of high school. How much should those actions that we hold, are holding Brett Kavanaugh and possibly other people of similar allegations, like, how do we hold them responsible for their actions then as a reflection is now? So, like, mm-hmm. should Brett Kavanaugh's, if the sexual assault is, proven, etc., when he was 17, 18 years old, should his actions when he was that age affect the job that he's going mm-hmm. to get when he's now, this age?
That's what... That's pretty much the defense against this, regardless of whether he did this, right? That's in his defense. That's what he's just bringing up these questions, and so are various other Republican senators and people in the know around him as well. That is, I mean, it is the question of the hearing, right?
Just give me 1 second as I close the door a little more.
I mean, this. I personally think, yes, he's 100% accountable if he did this, right? I think he's 100% accountable. I don't care if he was drunk. I've been drunk before, and I've never fucking done that. And I never even, the thought never crossed my mind, not let alone has it ever crossed my mind while I was sober. So it's really, if you don't have control over yourself, and it just, when you're I mean, I understand 17-year-olds do stupid things, right? But mm-hmm. they shouldn't, the ones that do those stupid things, like this type of level of stupid things, I mean, there's different levels of stupid things, right? But this is not only stupid, but obviously harmful to another human being. So, I mean, I can't stand at all for this personally, but...
And I think that there is the possibility of people saying, like, okay, well, if liberal people are the people who would say mm-hmm. that you shouldn't punish teenage black kids, right, for drugs or excessive violence or things like that, or punish anybody who is of a young age, right, mm-hmm. for the actions that they're doing for the rest of their lives, how does this different... how is the Brett Kavanaugh case different than those kinds of actions? Like, for instance, I'm a person who thinks that the punishments that are handed down to young black kids or white kids or Hispanic kids, mm-hmm. but mostly it is a minority issue with the over-policing of the neighborhoods for, like, drug crimes or things like that. So, if you make a mistake at this age... at the 16, 17, 18 years old, even, then should that affect the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And I think that there is, to an extent, a difference in how these are being handled. Mm-hmm. So this is something that Brett Kavanaugh did when he was that age, but nothing happened. There were no reparations, there was no rehabilitation, there was no prosecution.
Yes.
So a lot of the times when we're talking about these cases, it's like, okay, bleeding heart liberals say that we shouldn't we shouldn't judge kids by what they're doing before they are of real like adult cognitive like ability. But Brett Kavanaugh is being hammered on this before he was of that same type. But Brett Kavanaugh is a person who grew up in a very privileged household with like private schooling type like privileges, a lot of like grooming to be a very high class citizen with a lot of opportunity,
It's a white
a lot
male
of things
with a lot of money. Yes.
And very little restriction in what is imposed on him. And there's no punishment for what he did. There was no recognition of what he did. And there's no attempt to rehabilitate himself in a way from that. What he's doing now is saying that he and his daughter prayed for Dr. Ford because something happened to her, but it wasn't him that did it. Right. This is not a man who is attempting to say he's sorry for his actions or anything at all. He's trying to deny it, and he's a really bad liar. And I think this is where we can draw the distinction.
Yes.
I think that the people who are attempting to rehabilitate themselves or there should be some level of punishment for your action, rehabilitation from that, and attempt to reconcile between the person that committed the act and the person that will live for the rest of their lives. And taking steps towards becoming a useful, positive citizen in a society versus a person who lies, and who tries to cover up as much as possible his piss-poor actions. And I think that is where we can draw those lines of distinction between, like, should we judge somebody for doing something when they're a kid versus not. Also, the opportunity and privilege that they have when doing that should be taken into account.
And you also, but I think, I mean, I think something that is important to factor in is that he is being nominated for Supreme Court justice. I see what you're. I mean, I honestly think you probably side on Dr. Ford's side of this situation. I'm guessing, but I don't necessarily know. But I don't think it matters. But I think you have to factor in that this man is probably going to be. I mean, he's nominated for Supreme Court justice, right? So I think when that comes into play, then I think I agree that we should put them. Sorry, that we should. We liberal. You say that liberals, are not trying to judge this man for what he did when he was 17, but we're not trying to judge. A black.
We're trying to be more lenient on black kids from poor neighborhoods,
right?
Who have like drug crimes or other
even
violent criminals in
exactly
so-called violent people committed violent crimes in those areas. Like a lot of people who I know that lean towards the more liberal side of things would say we should abolish prisons. We should abolish a lot of laws that punish prisoners. We should be doing rehabilitation and not punishment, things like that.
Right.
And so it's interesting to me that the same kind of people that would say that we don't need to punish kids who are doing crimes and then being convicted of them in the modern age, but are being very harsh on Brett Kavanaugh. It's interesting to me.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I agree.
Like I'm not siding with people who support Brett Kavanaugh. I'm just saying it's an interesting debate.
Yeah,
I'm here to pick a side. Okay. It's my podcast. I'm going to pick a side. I'm on the side of don't elect Brett Kavanaugh because he's a fucking liar who's going to turn over Roe v. Wade.
I think it's important to that those minorities that are being convicted of small-time criminal actions and then being jailed and ruining their lives, I think it's important that those people aren't running for Supreme Court justice. So I think
that's also a valid
you
point,
have
that
to.
It's a different scope.
Yeah. So I mean, for instance, like Donald Trump, right? I mean, he's pretty much in all due respect, he's a fucking criminal, right? So he's like screwed over many people, and step over, won't hesitate to step over anyone. And he was running for president and then became president. So we didn't hold him accountable for a lot of the crappy things that he's done. And so I think when you are running for a really high position, this man is going to be one of the most powerful men in the United States if he becomes the Supreme Court justice for way longer than Donald Trump will ever be president. Keep that in mind. I think that's really important. So I think it's really important to factor that in when we judge him, or when, well, obviously we won't judge him, but I'm saying when, if he goes on trial for this type of thing. So I think it is important to factor that in, because it's a really important job. But yeah,
I think it's a very important job, and I think it's correct in that there are like 3 levels of this, right? So there's like, should we judge a youth or an adult, like 40 years later, an adult for what they did in their youth? That's one layer.
Yes.
Second layer is the person never was punished, it never was brought up, he got away scot-free, and it shows no remorse for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second level.
Well, he's
and
saying
a third
he didn't
level,
do it.
Right. And a third level is that this is for one of the highest positions in the goddamn country, that is a position for life. A position that has a longer term than any president will. Hopefully. Yes. If Trump has his way, maybe not, but hopefully. So I think that you are correct in that. And what we should get a little bit deeper into, I think, is what was it that we find discrepancy in, and why, like, I've characterized him as a liar here on this podcast, and I, honest to God, think he is.
Yes, I agree.
So there are a lot of things that I think Judge Kavanaugh has lied about. I mean, the Times and other people have done a lot of different things to check what he's been talking about, but I think one of the main things that we can look into in terms of, like, does it match up with the story being told by Dr. Ford or by Judge Kavanaugh is Judge Kavanaugh a heavy drinker? And Definitely. If you look at his high school yearbook, the things, I sent you, I think, that photo, I don't know, in the Discord, I don't know if you saw it. Things that he wrote, Kavanaugh high school yearbook entries. Things like, Judge, have you boofed yet?
Yes.
Boofed being a code word for throwing up from drinking. Keg City Club treasurer, 100 kegs or bust.
Mm-hmm.
These are, I think, definitive statements that prove that Mr. Brett Kavanaugh was absolutely a heavy drinker. He also had a Yale classmate that is going to testify before the FBI in North Carolina, Chad Ludington, who is a professor at North Carolina State University, that is stating that Judge Kavanaugh severely understated how much he drank and the degree and frequency of his drinking, and that the judge had often become, quote, belligerent and aggressive, quote, while intoxicated. And Mr. Ludington, I don't know if he's a full doctor or not, is a fairly credible source, as he attended Yale with Judge Kavanaugh. But he's not the only one. There are other classmates that are stepping forward and talking about the extent to which Judge Kavanaugh was a heavy drinker. Right. And there's the idea that it's possible that Judge Kavanaugh blacked out and doesn't remember this period. I think that's one of the lines of questioning that was held during when Brett Kavanaugh was in front of the Senate committee. This was a line of questioning that was being brought up. Is it possible that Judge Kavanaugh doesn't recall what happened that night because he blacked out? And Judge Kavanaugh said no, absolutely. He's characterized his drinking habits as somebody who drinks 1 or 2 beers and that's all. And that's clearly not the case.
I believe I remember that specific part where one of the women senator, I forget her name, was asking, have you ever, essentially, have you ever blacked out from drinking? And then he wouldn't answer the question, and he asked her, have you ever blacked out from drinking? And kept asking her the same question. And I believe that's definitely he didn't want to say that he obviously has blacked out from drinking. And
it actually goes even further.
it goes further on
Yeah,
that
so
line of
I'm sorry. The
conversation.
1980s was a term, boofed in the 1980s was a term that often referred to anal sex.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's how Judge Kavanaugh's classmates said they interpreted his comment. They said they had never heard it used to refer to flatulence. Similarly, they said that they had never heard of a drinking game called Devil's Triangle, but the phrase was regularly used to describe sex between two men and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
The explanation Devil's Triangle does not hold water for me, said William Fishburne. Again, this is from the New York Times reporting, who managed the football team during Judge Kavanaugh's senior year. So these are, in addition to the 100 kegs or bust and the Keg City Club, the Devil's Triangle and the Have You Boofed Yet are different references to possibly what he was attempting to do with his friend to Dr. Ford at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, and I believe I heard once that boofing means anally ingesting alcohol, which obviously is incredibly dangerous and should not be done. But it goes directly in your bloodstream that way.
That's
so
supremely dangerous.
Super dangerous one, and clearly I think quite clearly this man has done that. And I mean, okay, all these things, like, great. Every college student drinks a lot, right? Or not every college student. And certainly not.
And many of the people in the highest positions of power drank a lot during college.
And also went to Yale, and also
school.
went to Harvard, and also went to these were in these positions, or were fraternity brothers and at college, and mostly at Ivy League schools. I don't want to tarnish the name of Ivy League, but I definitely believe the students there, the fraternity brothers at Ivy Leagues are quite the drinkers. But at obviously other universities. I mean, we've met plenty of fraternity brothers that have drank quite a few beers in their day. But that being said, a lot of those, I mean, so the question still remains, like, do we hold someone accountable for what they've done before they were even 18, right? So I think obviously you should hold people accountable for what they do in the past, if it's a criminal action. But drinking is not a crime, so you don't want to necessarily hold that against him. But the question again,
but your
remains,
actions while you are drunk are still prosecutable.
Important.
They're still things that we need to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's so willing to lie about the characterization of his drinking habits is something that also needs to be taken into account. And that's not the only thing that he's lied about. I think what's important from Dr. Ford's testimony and Judge Kavanaugh's response to the testimony is that we can see what kind of person he is. Mm-hmm. He's clearly somebody who's attempting to avoid recognizing something that he did. I think that even President Trump called Dr. Ford a credible person. Mm-hmm. So I think that the vitriol and the vigor with which Brett Kavanaugh defended himself was purely for the president and not because of anything else. The president commented that he really liked how much of a fighter Brett Kavanaugh was. But no matter what kind of vitriol and vehemence and tears and anger that you come out with, it doesn't dismiss the fact that most likely he's a liar and that Dr. Ford's testimony is true and his characterization of his drinking is wrong. And if he's a liar in this case, he could be a liar in different in other places, especially since we know that a lot of the things that he said are just blatantly not true. For instance, he said that President Trump looked far and wide and consulted with the most people in the history of any president about who should be selected for the Supreme Court nomination. And that's how he came to be.
No way.
We just know for a fact that isn't true. That the amount of people that President Trump talked to is not the most amount of people that has ever been talked to. These are just simple, hyperbolic statements that have they're not even necessary to say, but Brett Kavanaugh is willing to say them because he's a very partisan person. And the other things that we can see is that he's lied about his position on Roe v. Wade. He's a very dangerous position on executive privilege, to the point where in previous statements he said that the conviction against Nixon should be overturned, and that it's possible that the climate of the time led to an erroneous decision.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Watergate.
Yeah, Watergate.
Something that we know to be true and to have been a crime, that Brett Kavanaugh is under executive privilege, I think it would have been okay. So I don't think that this is a person that we need on our Supreme Court, regardless of whether he's telling the truth or not, which I think we clearly know that he's not.
Yeah, I think he's a bad candidate. Although for some reason a lot of people support him, and he's clearly, still pretty much a frat brother, I think, at heart, regardless of how he conducts himself on television. So, yeah, definitely a hungover gaming seal of disapproval for this man. I can't believe that this is a picture. I think it's all kind of comical, but obviously very, very serious situation. That this is a picture in the background. This is crazy. This is how America has evolved in the past 2 years. Is
I also think it's funny
madness.
that they're both those posters are being held up by people.
Yeah, I know that.
We don't even have screens behind them. It's just people holding the
his
signs.
job is just to hold in front of your face. Don't move.
Oh my god.
And then there was another picture that had been going around the internet, where Brett Kavanaugh was I think giving his opening statement or something along those lines, or maybe he was just asked a question. He looked pretty angry, and then there's literally 3 or 4 rows of women behind him that all look horrified and disgusted with this man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then I think there were women Democratic senators that were leaving the hearings in protest, and then there was those 2 women that were what was the senator that was holding up the decision, I believe,
Jeff Flake?
Flake, which is a funny name. I knew that was the name going around, but I didn't believe that this is his last name. I thought it was kind of funny.
Jeff Flake is a senator that is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that's done a lot of rhetoric against Trump, but has also done things that have been very morally correct, I think, in this time of really, really, really difficult decisions for a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has done a lot of things that have been actually kind of commendable.
So he's more moderate than...
I don't know that I would
he's
go
closer
that
to the
far.
middle than
But I think that when it comes to making
Republicans.
a decision of moral consciousness as opposed to falling in terms of political, dogma, he's more willing to do something that has a morally substantial, positive background, which I admire in such a person.
What do you think the likelihood of let's say the FBI investigation turns up, and they decide to go through. What do you think possibly can come out of this FBI investigation? Let's start there, I guess.
This is very difficult. I think the end result of an FBI investigation, if it's long enough and with enough time to be thorough, will result in Brett Kavanaugh being dismissed as a Supreme Court judge nominee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the optimal decision or thing that could be made from an FBI investigation, because I really don't believe anything that he said. I think that he's lying outright about a lot of things. I think that he's trying to cover up a lot of things, and I really do truly believed a very credible testimony from Dr. Ford.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what eventually will come from an FBI investigation will be at least enough proof to force his withdrawal as a nominee.
Okay.
I don't think anything more major than that will happen. I think that he will just have to withdraw as a nominee, and the president's staff will have to come up with a plan B.
Okay.
What about you?
I mean, ideally, that's the situation that comes out in the way I want it to turn out. I agree with you. I think this man is a liar, and I don't want him to be a Supreme Court nominee, let alone justice on Supreme Court. But I think that the likelihood, I'm okay. I just don't understand how testimonies work, really. I understand that she has allegations that come out, and I 100% believe her, by the way. I'm just trying to, I always think that that a sexual assault type of situation would rather have, I mean, obviously every decision in the court would rather have physical evidence. So I'm a little wary of how they're going to judge her testimony and other people coming out to testify against Brett Kavanaugh. Because one, this thing happened so long ago, and memories obviously fade. And I'm not saying this is obviously a very traumatic position that Dr. Ford was put in. And that type of thing doesn't really fade. I mean, again, luckily, I've never been in a very traumatic situation, so I wouldn't know. But she's actually a doctor. She's a doctor of psychology, if I'm not mistaken, right? So she would actually know. Or she knows a lot more about the brain than I do. I know that. So I'm just worried for if this were to elevate more than it already has, that the defense against him is that they don't have enough tangible evidence to well, I mean, obviously to convict him, that would be great, but I don't think he will be convicted of anything, but maybe he'll be able to force withdrawal of his nomination. But I don't think that there's enough evidence against him. Strong evidence, personally. I definitely believe Dr. Ford, but I question whether or not it's strong enough to make anything happen. That's what I say.
That's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah,
I think.
I wish it was like stronger, but she was, I don't know how old she was. I assume she was around 17 or 18. She was 17 or 18. It was the 80s. Everyone was drunk. I don't know. You know, like she admitted she had a couple drinks too.
Okay. So what happened with Bill Clinton back in the day? The
Right.
real reason that Bill Clinton was impeached is because he lied in front of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that even if the FBI investigation just proves that Brett Kavanaugh was lying about his characterization of of his drinking, about what his statements were in his yearbook, about any of that kind of thing, if he's lying in front of the committee, then that's enough to force him to withdraw his candidacy.
Okay, that is good. Good news.
I think. I don't see how somebody who, like Bill Clinton was basically convicted of lying under oath.
Mm-hmm.
If Judge Kavanaugh is proved to be lying under oath, then I mean, like, I think he's dug his own grave, so to speak, in terms of his nomination.
All right. Well, tell us what you think in the comment section below. I feel like we've discussed this to extensive lengths. Obviously, the FBI investigation is going on now, or is it going to start next week?
It will be conducted within the next week.
Yeah, so we don't have all the answers for you yet. Hopefully we get a verdict on this soon. I would like, I guess the longer it takes, that means the longer the FBI has to investigate the trial.
They've been given a week, so
not
there's a very concrete date by which they need to have found conclusions.
And hopefully the FBI operates outside of politics, as they should. But who knows in America these days. But the way things are going, actually, who knows? We will be back with hopefully discussion about the results of this situation maybe next week. We'll find out. But until then, keep following the news. It's an educated populace is obviously way more powerful than one that doesn't care. So, Yvonne.
That's what we've been advocating. That's why we made a podcast.
Yeah, we this is why we want to talk about these types of topics. One, they interest us, obviously. But two, it's really important to get more voices out there, more opinions about different situations that are going on. So definitely keep the conversation going in the comment section below if you're listening or watching the video. And you can contact us if you have any qualms with what we've said. Definitely open a conversation with us. We're always willing to have a conversation with our audience. We're definitely happy to just try to, keep it cool. No, these types of situations, obviously everyone gets heated. If you saw Lindsey Graham, I think the senator from South Carolina, he got so pissed off. He called the investigation a sham, a Democratic type situation. Obviously, he's very angry. So that's the exact opposite of what we want in our politics, I think, and the exact opposite of what we want coming out from the people who are governed by the politicians. So, Yvonne, we end our podcast in every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is where you, the listener, can send in your music to gaminghungover@gmail.com. The links are in the description below. You can send in your music for free advertisement. It would be pretty awesome if we got to listen to your band or, maybe you're a recording artist, solo artist. That would be pretty cool as well. I'm always happy to listen to new music. But if not, I get to pick a song. And today, I'm really excited for Soul Calibur. So we're going to be listening to Soul Calibur 6 OST main menu. Early Recreation. That's the name of the song. Hope you guys enjoy the song, and until next week, I'm Julien.
I'm Yvonne. Bye.
Goodbye.